I'm Scarlet Raven, and I had an NDE in Sri Lanka back in 2019. I was on a vacation there, and prior to this happening, I was a very new age type of spiritual person, so I was not relating to God directly. I felt triggered when I heard or said the word God, and my life was basically based on, which I found out through the NDE, that I had a really a big spiritual ego. I thought that I could manifest things and everything was up to me. Everything I did to help people was because I was helping people. And I thought that that was like a very high state of consciousness at the time. When I went to Sri Lanka, I traveled with my partner at the time, and when I landed in that country, I immediately felt ill. So what happened was we were traveling and we wanted to tour the whole country, but we went to this really southern tip first, which was a really rural area of Sri Lanka. So it didn't have a lot of services. It certainly didn't have great healthcare. And when we got to the hotel, I already started feeling a fever. I could feel that my throat was getting scratchy, but I had just spent, this trip was meant to be a gift for my partner for his birthday. He chose the country. I paid for it as a gift. So I really wanted to show up and have a great time with him. And I tried to ignore my sickness. We showed up at the hotel around 10 a.m. We took a little tuk-tuk into town. He wanted to shop for jewels. Apparently, what I found out later, the reason why he wanted to go to that country was because it was a jewel vibrant country. Like, people go there to buy jewels, to make jewelry. So he was going there for his business. And we took this tuk-tuk into town. He's going into all the jeweler stores. He's looking at all the diamonds and the rubies. And all of a sudden, I start to get into this state where I can't breathe. So it feels like when you want to take a breath in, it's like I wasn't getting air, and I started getting a headache. I could feel the fever coming on. It really happened in a matter of hours. Whatever was taking over my body was coming on very, very quickly. And I think because I had just flown for 40 hours, my immune system was probably weakened. I'm an herbalist, and normally I travel with things like echinacea and different treatments like CBD oils, but this country's laws are so strict that they have firing squads if they find any cannabis or CBD on you. So I didn't bring anything. I just thought that was safer. So he's shopping, and I'm telling him, like, I can't breathe. I have to go back to the hotel. Something's wrong, very wrong. And he says, well, I want to keep shopping, so just take a tuk-tuk back. And I try and find a tuk-tuk, and I remember this local guy was like, you're struggling, like, where's your hotel? I'll take you. I get back to the hotel, I lay in the bed, and I'm out. Like, I pass out instantly. And the next thing I remember is him shaking me awake. It must have been a few hours later. And at that point, I was delirious. Like, I remember seeing him, and the fever was so high. When I woke up, my body was like, the pain was unimaginable. I had never experienced pain like that. And I've had shingles, and shingles is really painful. All my joints and my muscles were in pain. My head was in pain. I had a really high fever. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know how I got to that place. I was really delirious. And immediately it was like, we have to go to the hospital. So we called the manager of the hotel. He helps us get to a hospital. And when I arrived there, due to the language barrier, I didn't know how to speak their local language. It was a very challenging experience. And this was a hospital that was like dirt floors with goats walking around. So I'm an herbalist. I thought maybe they would be giving me herbs. They have an ancient Ayurvedic medicine tradition through that country because they're so close to India. And I really wanted to experience that type of treatment. But I got a list of about 7 to 9 prescriptions. I can't remember. And I filled all of them at the pharmacy. I get back to the hotel and I'm like Googling what each one is once I got back into Wi-Fi, and I realized like there's only one that wasn't a dog medication, and it was an antibiotic. So I try and take the antibiotic, but my throat is closing up and I don't have any food in my body. And I end up just like laying back down. And at this point, all I asked of my partner, I was like, will you please go out and get me like an ibuprofen or an Advil? I have to have something to cut the pain. And when I asked him that, he was excited because he was like, yeah, I can go out and go shopping for more gems, and then I'll pick you up like an ibuprofen and I'll come home. So I'm laying there basically just counting the seconds till he gets back, thinking I can cut this pain in two, I can progress and heal. I'm young, I know my body's gonna heal. Like, I wasn't worried about dying. And when he got back a few hours later, it was a combination. What kicked me off into like having a death experience was the combination of the physical pain and suffering. The fever was maxing out the way I could think and respond to help myself. And then when he showed up back to the hotel and I was like, where's my pain pills? And he said, oh, I forgot. When he said that, it generated this kind of turmoil of emotions, realizing that the person I had traveled with just literally didn't even care about me and kind of used me to get there to buy gems for the company. And my mom had been telling me he wasn't a good person for months. So you know how like I ignored many red flags in the relationship. And this was the one domino that like knocked over everything. So in a split second, I knew who this person was. And that made, number one, my ego was shattered because I had just spent $10,000 on this person and he literally didn't even care about me. And it wasn't just the physical disease that was going through my body. It was the emotional and the ego shattering. And once all of that happened, the pain got 10 times worse. You know, when you're really sick and someone's caring for you and making you chicken soup, you feel loved, you feel better, you feel held. It's easier to heal in these circumstances. I was in a foreign country. I didn't have my family, my cats, my parents. I had no one I could call. And then I was stuck with this person who I had just realized was not a good person. I was crushed. I mean, the level of ego crushing was also very painful mentally. And at that point, I laid back down into bed. And what I had was a fraction of hope that maybe my body would heal itself. That totally left. And I honestly started thinking like, I'm going to die here. I'm going to die in this country. I don't know what disease I have. The hospital and I can't speak to each other. And this person is focused on shopping. And I laid there in the bed and I closed my eyes and I said inside of my head, I said, God, just take me now. And like I said prior to starting the story, I wasn't a God person. I had never used the word God, but there was a presence, like there was something a part of this experience that I didn't have any knowledge of prior, but something was present in that room. Some type of an energy was there letting me know I wasn't going to die. And when I even said the word God in my head and I said, God, like, just take me. If this is how you want me to die, I thought, that's weird, Scarlet. Like, you don't use the word God. And my eyes were closed. And then all of a sudden, I went from feeling like withering pain, the most pain that I could ever describe, to feeling nothing but pure love. And I wasn't in my body anymore. It was like I closed my eyes, I was in my body. And then I opened my eyes and I wasn't in my body. And I was surrounded by this presence of pure unconditional love. I knew it was God. I knew I was resting in the frequency of God. And I perceived God at that time as this energetic blanket of light. And then when whatever part of my soul at that time, like I wasn't a body. So I was also just this presence of light. But in the presence of God's presence, all I could feel was love and being held. And I remember just resting in that place. And while it was happening, it's not like I could recognize what was happening. I was in the situation. I didn't recognize what happened until I got back into my body. I don't know how long I was there. I don't know if I actually lost consciousness or my heart stopped. Like, I didn't have someone in the room giving me feedback. I just have my own experience of what it was and what it felt like. And when I get back in my body, basically it felt like no words were shared, but it felt like a sense of completion had occurred. And I was like, okay, the time here has been completed. And then I close my eyes and I open my eyes again, and I'm back in my body. But all of a sudden, the pain that I had, it was cut in half. And I almost starting to reflect, like, I know other people that have had NDEs, and I've talked to them about it. The experiences are so otherworldly that it takes a lot of time to process what actually occurred, because it's so different than this 3D reality. And I also didn't have a baseline of God and God's presence. So I was piecing things together while I was still sick in that bed. But it almost felt like my time with God healed my body. And then when I got back in my body, I still had pain and suffering, but I was functional again. The fever was gone. It almost felt like I had a flu at that point. Like I still had issues breathing, and I had issues breathing for about a few months after this experience too. But I could walk to the bathroom myself, I could dress myself, I could shower. I was functional, but I felt like I had a really bad flu, maybe like a pneumonia type of a deal. And after that experience, so this happened in 2019, now it's 2025. I was very ashamed of sharing this because it was attached to that partner, and I had to share that part of the story, which would unveil the fact that I chose a really awful boyfriend, and I was embarrassed about it. I was embarrassed that that happened to me and that I spent so much money on that person. So sharing this for me took a really long time to feel comfortable with the vulnerability that it would put me in that position of vulnerability on the internet's forever. So it took me a really long time, but what happened was I started watching other people's NDEs, and I thought, I get so much hope and faith out of watching other people's NDEs. It would almost be not cool for me not to share mine. If I could just inspire one other person, I want to. And also what happened after that was I became a lover of God. So I went from like new age spiritual, super huge spiritual ego, always thinking I'm right, always thinking I'm creating my own reality, to having God move through me. Now I don't do anything. If something happens and I serve someone and they get a healing or they feel uplifted, it's because God moved through me for that person. So that experience also humbled me. And I think the humbling pain, the mental and emotional pain and suffering took months and months to get over. Not only did I have to, separate from this person and get him out of the house, but I had to go through realizing that my ego was huge and it was being crushed, and I had to totally rebuild who I was. And I directly went to the Course in Miracles and basically started studying the word of Jesus through the Course in Miracles and surrendering things to God. And my final conclusion, like the thing that I want people to know, is that if you realize, and you can call God, I don't think you have to call God God. You can say it's creator, you can say it's great spirit, but there is this energy that is outside of the 3D realm. The 3D realm we can only recognize with our 5 senses, our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ears, our touch. There's this realm that is present inside and all around this 3D realm, and it's the presence of God. And if we surrender things to God and we give things to God completely, that's when miracles occur. That's when the near-death experience I had was initiated through surrendering my life to God. I basically said, God, take me. I don't want to do this anymore. And I had zero motivation to stay on earth at that point. So it was a full 100% surrender. And that's what I've been realizing post NDE is anything I surrender fully to God, God is going to take care of it. So it wasn't just like, now I've had multiple experiences, they're not NDEs, but multiple experiences of miracles because I've surrendered situations to God. And I know now, like I have a visceral experience of knowing. I don't have to question my faith. God is right there. God will take anything from me. And the only reason why people suffer is because they cut God off and they focus on what's wrong in the 3D realm. And that basically just creates this bubble of like steel around you where God can't access you because we have free will. So if we utilize our free will to invite God in, then God's going to come in and change different situations for us and create miracles. So my biggest message is to people that God is 100% real. Jesus Christ and commanding things and saying prayers that Jesus taught us 100% works. And the more humble we are, the more access we have to these otherworldly energies. So my practice now is always staying humble, always giving the glory to God. I don't want to slip back into that huge spiritual ego where I think it's on me and I'm doing all these things. I want everything to be given to God. And my whole life's mission since I've been on this planet has been to be of service and to help people realize their internal power. I was doing that way before the NDE. I just wasn't doing it in alignment with God's will prior to the NDE. Now, the way that I serve people through the organic herbal remedies I make or the online schools that I make, it's all about surrendering to God. Yes, herbal remedies can help you and can shift the frequency of your body to higher states of health, but what's more powerful is knowing that you were created by a frequency that's only pure love. And I fully believe with 100% that Eden, heaven on earth, is here for us right now, but it's a consciousness state. Because when I look back at what happened to me in Sri Lanka, I was in a really low vibratory consciousness state. I was in pain or suffering. I said, no, God, have me. I don't want this anymore. I shifted my consciousness state to completely the most purest frequency ever. That was done through a verbal internal command. So that access is here now for everybody. You don't have to get really sick and just give up your life. You can literally start using those commands now. So what I'm most passionate about now is showing people that heaven on earth is here for all of us, and it's a consciousness state. I have built my own Eden where I live, and my prayer is to inspire people like you that are watching this to just don't settle. Don't settle for anything less than heaven on earth, and God will show you how to get that for yourself. God, your intuition will start speaking to you from within. It'll be God's voice from within once you've created that relationship, and you will be guided to the perfect heaven on earth experience. And if you're ever experiencing really intense pain or suffering, surrender all of it to God. All of it. Just give it up. Say, God, take all of this, all of it, and just keep doing it until you feel the levity come back inside of you. So that's how powerful we all really are. And that's what I got from this experience. I realized true power, not ego power, which I had prior, which was very painful. Now I have the true power of knowing that if I stay humble and I always face God, I will be in heaven on earth right now. So that's my NDE, and I pray that you can see how powerful you are inside of your own body. You can see how much access you have to these divine frequencies, and it's really obtained through practice. So thank you guys.